2 of the 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach Donald Trump in January have decided that their careers in Congress are over, including my next guest, Republican Congressman Anthony Gonzalez of Ohio, who revealed to me in his first and only national television interview what led him to break from his party against the big lie that the election was stolen, what he is worried Trump is trying to do now ahead of 2024. He came very close to overturning an election through various methods. How worried are you that next time he'll be better positioned and he'll undermine democracy?
It looks to me, and I think any objective observer would come to this conclusion, that he has evaluated what went wrong on January 6th. Why is it that he wasn't able to steal the election? Who stood in his way? Every single American institution is just run by people. And you need the right people to make the right decision in the most difficult times. He's going systematically through the country and trying to remove those people and install people who are going to do exactly what he wants them to do, who believe the big lie, who will go along with anything he says. And again, I think it's all pushing towards one of two outcomes. He either wins legitimately, which he may do, or if he loses again, he'll just try to steal it. But he'll try to steal it with his people in those positions. And that's then the most difficult challenge for our country. You ask yourself the question, do the institutions hold again? Do they hold with a different set of people in place? I hope so, but you can't guarantee it.
What do you remember about January 6th?
I was sitting in the balcony when the session was called to order, and I saw the first objection. And at that point, I throw on my Twitter, and I could see that people were breaking the line. So I peeked out the window, saw more people breaking, and I said, I'm just going to go back to my office. This doesn't look like a good thing. So ultimately barricaded ourselves in, put some street clothes on in case I had to run for it, and luckily I didn't. Nobody came in, but it was pretty harrowing. I mean, there were tough calls with my wife. There were tough calls with my family. At the time, you don't know how it's going to end. Thank God that there weren't more people killed. But at the time, you don't know that. At the time, you know that there's an angry, violent mob who believes the election was stolen in the United States of America, and you're seeing even members of Congress saying this is our 1776 moment. If that's what people are saying, well, of course you're going to have violence, and of course you're going to have a riot at the Capitol.
There are people who voted to certify the election who did not vote to impeach. Was that the most difficult vote of your life, or was the certification one more tough?
The impeachment was the hardest vote, for sure. In order to get me to vote for an impeachment, any impeachment, I have to believe that there was a grave assault on the country committed by the sitting president, whoever it is. And so it was deeply sad to come to the conclusion that I did, and to feel like I could no longer trust the President of the United States, even for a few days, to be the commander-in-chief of our military. I felt like I had no choice in the matter. I had to do what I felt was right to protect the country.
And then you not only put your political career in jeopardy by doing that, you got death threats.
Yeah. This will sound weird, and I don't mean it to. It'll sound flippant, but I always expected death threats in this job, so that wasn't a surprise. Unfortunately, it happened maybe sooner than I would like, and it happened in this way. But that wasn't what made me decide not to run again. It really wasn't. As terrible as those death threats are, right? For me, it was more a lifestyle decision for my family and kind of what kind of family life we want going forward. But look, to state the obvious, though I expected death threats at some point in this job, there is no legitimate place for political violence anywhere in this country. And the fact that we've seen it, and I would argue normalized it over the last 2 years, sets our country back significantly. It's one of the biggest things I'm worried about.
There are hopefully Republican voters and maybe even some Republican leaders watching you right now. What is your message to them?
2 things. One, keep the faith. This country's been through a lot. We've fought through it, and we've persevered. The country As much as I despise almost every policy of the Biden administration, and we could talk about that for 6 hours, the country can survive a round of bad policy. The country can't survive torching the Constitution. We have to hold fast to the Constitution. That needs to be the bedrock upon which we build our party and our movement. We have to be a party of ideas. We have to be a party of truth. And the cold, hard truth is Donald Trump led us into a ditch on January 6th. The former president lied to us. He lied to every one of us. And in doing so, he cost us the House, the Senate, and the White House. I see fundamentally a person who shouldn't be able to hold office again because of what he did around January 6th. But I also see somebody who's an enormous political loser. And I don't know why anybody who wants to win elections going forward would follow that. I simply, I don't get it ethically. I certainly don't get it politically. Neither of them make sense. If he's the nominee again in 24, I will do everything I personally can to make sure he doesn't win. Now, I'm not voting for Democrats, but whether that's find a viable third party or whether that's try to defeat him in primaries, whatever it is, that's going to be where I'll spend my time.
Because you're worried about what he'll do to democracy?
Yeah, I don't trust him. January 6th was the line that can't be crossed. January 6th was an unconstitutional attempt led by the President of the United States to overturn an American election and reinstall himself in power illegitimately. That's fallen nation territory, that's third world country territory. My family left Cuba to avoid that fate. I will not let it happen here. Can I stop him? I have no idea. But I believe as a citizen of this country who loves this country and respects the Constitution, that's my responsibility.